National Human Rights Commission says it received more than 370,000 complaints of human rights violations across Nigeria in September alone, with the North Central region topping the list. Executive Secretary of the Commission, Tony Ojukwu, made this known in Abuja during the presentation of the 2025 September Dashboard Report. Ojukwu said the observatory offers an honest reflection of the state of human rights in the country, not just as numbers, but as stories of lives and liberties lost. The complaints range from denial of access to justice, unlawful arrests and detention, to domestic and sexual violence, including torture and discrimination. He added that the data exposes persistent and evolving threats to human rights across all 6 geopolitical zones. So let's quickly bring in a lawyer, Todimu Ige, for more on this. Thank you so much, Mr. Ige, for joining us. So 371,622 complaints in September alone. That's quite staggering. Does this point to Nigeria being or becoming a lawless country?
Well, if you look at the data for September, to ascertain whether there is an increment in human rights abuses, we need to, relate it with previous data. And as it stands, I think that over time, the system has improved. But what we need to understand is that we need to compare the data with previous data and also identify, but it could be that people now trust in the system and report these abuses more as opposed to previous times when they feel that if they don't report the abuse, there is no remedy for them under the law. So, those are the facts that we need to examine to identify and be sure if there's an increment or it means that more people are coming out.
Okay, so I will consider that we're talking about issues like denial of access to justice, unlawful arrest, detention, domestic violence, sexual violence, and others. What would you say are the factors that fuel these social ills?
Now, the truth of it is that access to justice, the Constitution already states clearly, Chapter 4 of 1999 Constitution, as amended, is very clear that the rights of Nigerians are protected. Now, if you don't have access to justice, one of the reasons why people don't have access to justice is because they often claim that the courts are overwhelmed. People don't have lawyers who can represent them because of the cost of living. And if you see, most of these matters that are also in court are usually against the police or law enforcement. And it's unbecoming how some of the law enforcement agencies undo Nigerians, undo matters. They tend to throw the due process, operation of the rule of law. They throw it into the wind. And then, of course, you will see in recent times how they have addressed the press, how they have addressed other Nigerians. You would even see altercations where people have their glasses and they are recording certain actions. It's, the police need to do better. Even individuals need to do better. We need to come to a point wherein everybody as a Nigerian has a right and the right is respected. We need to understand that the rule of law must operate. Nobody is above the law. Everybody is subject to the law. Whether you are a policeman, whether you are in the force, whether you are dealing with your fellow Nigerians, you must understand that the rule of law is important. And that is one of the reasons why we have the increment of abuse of human rights process. One people, and number two is that people feel that they can get away with many outness. People feel that there are no repercussions of the law. And because the truth of it is that before you can get justice, you need to know someone, and which is supposed to be so. Everybody should be able to walk up to the police or to the court to address any form of injustice. And to wrap this all up, I strongly believe that as a nation, we need to do better. People must respect the law and be law abiding.
So with you saying this and the fact that we've seen a surge in violence, does it not reflect the absence of a truly functional judicial system capable of punishing offenders?
Well, the truth of it is that the judiciary is trying its best to ensure that things pick up, that things, people get justice when their rights have been infringed upon. But the unfortunate situation is that the courts are overwhelmed, and we need to build more courts to address human rights violations. Because as a matter of fact, the truth of it is, if you file an action at the Federal High Court in some states like Lagos, Abuja, it could take you about a year or two to wrap up the matter. And you can imagine, there are times that you are in court and then you have about 60 or 40 matters on the court list. It shows to you that there's a lot that needs to be done. We need to empower the judiciary more so that our people can have access to justice. And then, once you are able to go to court and get justice, it's easier for people to approach the court. And of course, when there are punitive measures, it also serves as a deterrent for people who have the tendency of flouting the law.
Well, earlier on, you said that Nigerians need to do better. Now, some Nigerians argue that the government itself is the biggest violator of citizens' rights, setting a negative example that trickles down through the society. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, the truth of it is that you will see, like I said, if you go to the courts, you will see that most of the human rights violation actions are usually against law enforcement or institutions of the state. Even the instances that individuals have to go to court against the police, or against one another, you would always see that it is usually backed by the unlawfulness or the illegality of actions carried out by law enforcement. It means that the state apparatus has been used to abuse the rights of individuals. And that means that this needs to be addressed. The state must get to a point wherein it is not used to abuse the rule of law. And I think that the state, the government must do better. We must walk the talk, and it must be shown that we are ready to ensure that the rights of Nigerians are upheld. It must, the police must not get away with infringement of human rights abuses. If there should be serious punitive measures. Even officers who are responsible for such violations should be relieved of their job and should be made to pay something punitive personally, as opposed to even the state and institution as a whole.
Okay, so we understand how it plays out in some regions in the southwest and southeast and all. But then what about the north central region that has recorded the highest number of reported cases of violations linked to banditry, kidnapping and the likes? Now, in such an insecure environment, can justice realistically prevail?
Yes, now the truth of it is that the court is in the best position to resolve issues in the favor of the party whose right has been breached. And in law, we say that when there is a breach, there is a remedy. Let all parties have their fair day in court. Let justice be timelessly dispensed, as opposed to having a long time spending, because justice must not just be done, it must be seen to be done. And what does that mean? That means that access to justice, access to speedy delivery of justice. If all these are put into cognizance and everybody is allowed a justiciable fair play, I feel that justice will be served. And of course, when these matters are quickly attended to, it brings down the rate of lawlessness. It brings down the rate at which people's rights are infringed upon, because they know that once there's an infringement, there's going to be a remedy, and the remedy is going to come at an heavy cost.
So basically, if you have a society that punishes bad behavior, then people will adjust. Well, thank you so much, Atodi Muige, for sharing your legal knowledge with us on the news this evening. It was nice talking to you.